Being a good guy is so overrated nowadays.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, yeah, the Avengers as heroes are fun to watch, but they're all so predictable, right? They'll quip, they'll go through a personal struggle, they'll save the day and then return for the sequel, but come on! What if every one of your favorite Avengers was actually evil instead? What sort of havoc would they rain down upon the universe? Would they be successful villains or fail like everyone else? So many questions, let's get into it right now. Let's face it, Tony Stark is sort of the main villain of the MCU anyway.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
It's okay?
Okay, go.
What? I'm sorry, but he's responsible for like half of the villains out there because his hubris and general attitude made a ton of people mad. Like, not just the level of mad where you write an angry email, but the type of mad where you become a supervillain because of it. But okay, fine. I can't argue that Tony Stark was also the MCU's greatest hero and ultimately made the biggest sacrifice to save everyone. But just think of it for a second. Evil Tony Stark.
You know, you may not be a threat, but you better stop pretending to be a hero.
What if Tony Stark left that cave in Afghanistan and decided that he wanted to use his newfound technical suit prowess to not make the world a better place, but rather double down on the amount of weaponry it needed?
That's how Dad did it. That's how America does it.
Imagine him scared for his life after his kidnapping attempt and wanting more protection in his life, eventually leading him toward the path of villainy. Would we still find all of Tony's quips and sarcastic remarks as charming if he was evil, or would his attitude come across as more sinister now? I think the scariest thing about an evil Tony Stark is that he would be a lot like Thanos.
Stark. You know me?
I do.
I don't think he'd be a greedy evil, but rather he'd be setting out to accomplish his goal no matter what the cost.
Stark's not crazy.
He will do anything to make things right.
But what would evil Tony Stark's ultimate goal be? IDK probably putting a literal suit of armor around Earth to stop all the aliens. You know what? As long as it's not an AI, that would probably be helpful at this point.
Hell, I do.
Come on, admit it. There was something oddly satisfying about seeing Steve Rogers whisper that in order to steal the staff away from the bad guys in Avengers Endgame. And as much as Nomad Steve Rogers was an outlaw with a rockin' beard, there was never any question that he was a good man with a pure heart. So now I present to you Evil Steve Rogers. What would be the cruelest, most twisted way to make a Captain America evil? Well, how about if the super soldier serum that seems to turn everyone else a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs actually affected him as well? What if he turned into more of a US agent John Walker type after going from shrimp to hunk back in the 40s? Let's run through that scenario. What if Steve Rogers was corrupted by the serum and then started to get a little too intense about his job? Like, yeah, he still wanted to stop Red Skull, but became more and more unhinged as time went on, much to the fear and shock of people like Howard Stark and Peggy Carter. So in this hypothetical situation, when Red Skull is zapped away and beaten, while Steve is left on that Hydra ship, the good guys have to make a tragic choice. They choose to let Steve crash because they know what he's becoming. That's a much darker ending. And then, in the 60 years it takes for him to be discovered, he returns ready to serve his country by whatever means necessary, even if that means he becomes what he's sworn to fight against. I don't know, that sounds pretty cool, but that would probably mean he's not worthy to wield Mjolnir. I'm torn. Hey, Thor has already gone through a dramatic character change from the Dark World to Ragnarok, so if nothing else, it proves his character can be flexible in how he acts. But could you really buy the God of Thunder as a straightforward villain? Well, he seemed like he was originally on that path. Rewind all the way back to the original Thor movie. You know, when Thor had bleached eyebrows? Yeah, that happened. But back then, Thor was arrogant, cocky, and believed himself to be an unbeatable warrior who's on his way to become king. Thankfully, he was humbled, but what if things had gone a bit differently? In the film, Loki was on his own path to try to make Odin proud, and that didn't turn out so well. But what if Loki instead turned his manipulation tendencies to Thor? Would the trickster god have been able to convince Thor that Odin needed to go and turn him to the dark side? I mean, probably not, but it would be fun to think about an evil Thor. Actually, it's probably better that Thor isn't evil.
The God of Thunder!
We know that the God of Thunder is one of the strongest heroes in the universe when he sets his mind to it, and having him as an enemy of Earth, who wants to conquer it alongside Loki, would spell out bad news for us Earthlings, don't you think? Alright, if I'm being honest, the only reason I wish Peter Parker in the MCU was a villain is that so he could reenact the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 3 emo dance. Come on, you know you want to see that. Just imagine Tom Holland with the greasy black hair, dancing on the chairs and dancing through the sidewalk. Forget Sylvie stabbing He Who Remains, because that would be the moment that successfully breaks reality as we know it.
We just crossed the threshold.
But all jokes aside, I do think there's something interesting about turning Spider-Man into a villain instead of a hero. While the MCU hasn't really hit this point hard enough yet, the comic character of Peter Parker always just has the worst luck and the worst personal life. It's always a struggle for him, and nothing ever comes easy, making it overall tempting to just stop the whole hero thing and become a villain. Our MCU Peter hasn't gone through that yet, but maybe with the multiverse of madness and all the bombshells from Far From Home's ending, maybe there's still time. Okay, just for a second, imagine the king of the most technologically advanced nation in the entire world suddenly declaring that he wants to go to war with everyone else. That's a scary thought, right? Thankfully, King T'Challa wasn't a villain, but you have to wonder what the world would overall look like if T'Challa had evil and megalomaniac tendencies. Would he be charismatic and charming enough to convince his entire nation that Wakanda should be front and center on the world stage? Maybe, maybe not. But you know who would agree with him? Killmonger. If T'Challa was a villain and wanted to grow the Wakandan Empire, then I think it's reasonable to assume that Killmonger would have approached as a friend instead of a foe. Now that's a wild thought. As fun as it was to see T'Challa clash with Killmonger, the idea of the pair teaming up to take on the world and change the global political landscape is the type of what-if story I'd want to see. You wouldn't need to introduce other dictators like Dr. Doom in this instance though, which is a little bit of a bummer, but I think it's worth it. For the longest time, people wanted to see a proper Planet Hulk adaptation in the MCU, but due to complicated character rights, the best we will ever get now is Thor Ragnarok. And now that Hulk has mostly traded in the smashing for glasses and a comfy sweater, the chances of seeing the character truly be evil are very slim, and that's a shame. The undercurrent for the entire Hulk character is that he's this uncontrollable rage monster that no one can control and everyone is secretly afraid of getting out of hand. And while Thor Ragnarok was more of a comedy, I'm now imagining a scenario where the Planet Hulk storyline could have played out properly, with Hulk becoming the champion of Sakaar, forming a life there, then when tragedy strikes, he makes a plan to head back to Earth to seek out his revenge. Having the Hulk be a villain would be a juicy storyline for our heroes because they wouldn't know whether Banner is still in there and able to be saved. But plot twist, in this fictional movie I'm making in my head, I'd actually have Banner turn evil too. Boom, now you have one of the world's smartest minds and one of the universe's strongest fighters working with each other to accomplish evil deeds. I think that's almost an unstoppable combination, don't you? When we first met Scarlet Witch, she was fighting for the enemy, but thanks to a Hawkeye pep talk, she switched over to the side of heroes. Okay, that's a bit of an oversimplification, but imagine for a second if Scarlet Witch didn't switch sides. Sure, maybe she wouldn't have gotten on board with Ultron's Crush the Earth plan, but that doesn't mean she had to join the Avengers. After Quicksilver's demise, she could have ventured off to be alone and harness her powers even more. And a threat that powerful would have to stay on the Avengers' radar. Then imagine if she did something truly evil as she embraced the darker tendencies of her powers. Something like, I don't know, enslaving an entire town to create a more idyllic life for herself? Oh wait, she kind of already did that. But that time she did it out of grief. Now imagine if she did that out of pure evilness. Clearly, Wanda is one of the most powerful beings in the universe right now as she oozes out chaos magic when she's not in control. And let's say that chaos magic corrupts her in a way that makes her the Avengers' greatest enemy ever? I mean, the way I play it out in my mind is that Wanda, who really took offense to Maria Hill calling her weird, sets out to turn the whole world weird by pulling a reverse House of M and bringing mutants into our world. See, Wanda as a bad guy certainly has its perks. Sure, Hawkeye started off as the butt of everyone's jokes and honestly was only part of the Avengers because he happened to be around on security duty when Loki popped out of the Tesseract. But let's not forget something. When Loki turned Clint evil, he easily took down an entire helicarrier using like one arrow. If that's not a powerful villain, I don't know what is. Let's say that for some reason, Hawkeye stayed evil after Loki's brainwashing. Can you imagine how deadly of a threat he could be? Sure, he's no match for the likes of an alien like Thor, but he's an expert human fighter with a powerful ranged weapon set, and he's also a brilliant tactician with top secret shield secrets in his head. Yeah, he could do some serious damage. Maybe not as the top villain, but certainly he'd be the best right-hand man a main villain could ask for. I mean, he definitely has the ability to go rogue as well. Look what happened when his family turned to dust in front of him. He took on a whole new persona and started dispatching villains with ruthless efficiency. Yeah, Hawkeye would make an excellent bad guy. In this alternate reality, I'm imagining that the accident that caused Stephen Strange to lose his surgical skills and embark on a journey that led him to become the Sorcerer Supreme didn't actually help him as a person.
It's not about you.
It only led him to become even more arrogant, which I know is hard to imagine. But say Doctor Strange found all these magical abilities and decided that he was the most powerful magician on Earth now, and now he could do whatever he wanted. Boom, evil Doctor Strange. That actually might be one of the more scary ones to think about, wouldn't it? Doctor Strange has proven a master of the mystical arts, and that's really hard to fight against. Good luck blasting a magician with a propulsor blast or throwing a shield at him, am I right? I think if Doctor Strange was truly a villain and someone like Baron Mordo or the Ancient One wasn't around to stop him, then really you just have to hope Scarlet Witch is around.
No, we will.
Because really it seems like she would be the only one capable of stopping his evil reign of magical terror. Maybe individually, the members of the Guardians of the Galaxy wouldn't rise above sea-level villainy if they were bad guys. But imagine if all of them were villains. That'd still be a highly dysfunctional little family unit, but it would also spell trouble for the entire galaxy. Like, evil Star-Lord would always have a new scheme or new idea and be able to keep these evil Guardians working together. Evil Rocket Raccoon would be able to build weapons of mass destruction and have even less sympathy for life than he already has. And evil Gamora, Drax, and Groot would all be excellent muscle, which is needed for a supervillain team. Put that all together and they're pretty much unstoppable. Your only hope when fighting these villain versions would be to split them up instead of fighting them all together. It's the only way you're gonna get a victory. I mean that, or challenging evil Star-Lord to a dance-off, because evil or not, Star-Lord will always want to have a dance-off to distract you. I mean, we've technically seen what Vision would look like evil on two separate occasions. Like, if Vision didn't break bad, he'd either be the Ultron type of evil where he hates humanity and especially probably hates Tony Stark for helping create him, because all sentient robots probably have to hate Tony. Or he would be the type of evil synthezoid that's controlled by an evil government organization to do their bidding. So, which evil Vision do you prefer? It's tough because as much as I hate the cliched rogue artificial intelligence trope, I also don't like the idea of Vision being a mindless pawn in some larger organization's evil schemes. Maybe there's a third option. Maybe both versions of this Vision team up with each other. Like, the evil artificial intelligence Vision steals the government Vision away and reprograms him, making it so you have like the start of an all-Vision supervillain team. I'd watch that. An evil Captain Marvel would be disastrous for all of us. Carol Danvers is one of those heroes that you're just thankful is on our side, because if she wasn't, she could have the potential to rule the whole galaxy. She's the hero that's so powerful that they can't even have her in the main fight for most of it, because then everything would be over too quickly. They have to nerf her in order for the villains to stand any sort of chance. So if we flip that and say that when the Tesseract infused her with Infinity Stone level power, it corrupted her, and now she wants to destroy the galaxy for some nefarious reason. I believe she could do it. She would go from planet to planet recruiting an army Thanos style, and Earth's best defense would probably be just hoping Captain Marvel skips over our planet while she's conquering. Because really, unless it's Doctor Strange, I don't see another Earth-based hero holding their own against the powerful Captain Marvel. War Machine as a villain would be like
Get out.
Hawkeye level of villainy, where he wouldn't be the main bad guy per se, but he'd make for an awesome and powerful right-hand man. War Machine's time in the MCU feels like it's just about to take off. After being a side character for so long and surviving an initial casting change from Terrence Howard to Don Cheadle, Rhodey is finally getting the spotlight in his own Armor Wars TV show, which will show what happens when Tony's tech falls into enemy hands, because we haven't seen that before. But I think there was a time when War Machine easily could have been the villain. I mean, he's lived in Tony's shadow for so long that a part of him could have wanted to break out on his own, as well as being loyal to the US government, which, as we've seen in the MCU, doesn't always have the best intentions in mind. An evil Rhodey would probably fight for the government no matter what, and that could put him at odds with the other Avengers. Though the bright side is that since Tony is no longer around, an evil War Machine would break down as soon as the suit stops working. Who would be better at being a bad guy, Sam Wilson or Bucky Barnes?
No!
I mean, sure, Bucky has the experience in the bad guy department, but I think Sam could surprise a lot of people if he was truly passionate about what he was fighting for, no matter the intention. Like, imagine if Steve was never unfrozen, meaning the Winter Soldier would have continued his reign as a top-secret assassin for many more years afterwards. But also, if Cap was still a capsicle, then maybe there's a situation where Sam becomes bitter due to the treatment of veterans in need and turns to the dark side. Look, seeing their banter in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show was great, but it would have been even better if they were both somehow supervillains fighting alongside each other. That could happen in season 2, right? Right? Sure, maybe. Okay, the Wasp I could see as a villain. Ant-Man? Not so much. Hope Van Dyne can be tactical and efficient when she wants to be, and all Scott has is close-up magic. But hey, let's actually be really grateful that Ant-Man couldn't be a villain. If he was, then he could beat any hero instantly by deploying the much-talked-about Thanos suggestion.
I got something kind of big, but I can't hold it very long.
Blew up the internet a while back. Yeah, it feels like with this special technique, Scott Lang could beat anyone, so we're just lucky he's on our side and he's mostly a little goofy, right? What a horrible way to go. If all these heroes were villains, does that mean all their villains could be heroes? Oh, so people like Killmonger, Thanos, Ultron, etc. as good guys who have to form their own superhero team to stop all these baddies from running around? Yeah, definitely sign me up.